Here's the truth most SUV buyers don't hear until it's too late. The wrong type of SUV doesn't just waste your money, it quietly works against how you actually drive, tow, commute, and age with the vehicle. Two SUVs can look identical in a parking lot and be engineered for completely opposite lives. Later in this video, I'll show you the single design decision that determines whether your SUV feels solid for 200,000 miles or starts falling apart at 80,000. And in the final section, I'll explain why many perfect-on-paper SUVs disappoint their owners after the honeymoon phase. There's one small architectural choice most buyers never ask about it that affects ride comfort, crash safety, towing stability, long-term maintenance, and even resale value. It sounds like a boring engineering detail. Keep it in mind, because in the last section, I'll show you how it quietly decides which SUV actually suits your life. Let's reset the word SUV. In America, we use it to describe everything from a Toyota RAV4 to a Chevrolet Tahoe. But mechanically, those vehicles are not cousins. They're barely acquaintances. From an engineering standpoint, modern SUVs fall into three core types: car-based crossovers, body-on-frame SUVs, unibody performance, or heavy-duty SUVs. Each one solves a different problem. Trouble starts when buyers expect one type to behave like another. And that leads to the first mechanical insight. Crossovers dominate American sales for a reason. Vehicles like the Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Mazda CX-5, and Ford Escape are built on unibody platforms shared with sedans. Mechanically, this means the body and frame are one structure. Suspension mounting points are optimized for ride comfort. The center of gravity is lower. Steering geometry favors predictability over brute strength. That's why the test drive feels good instantly. The steering is light, the cabin is quiet, the ride is compliant. Your brain relaxes within 5 minutes. But here's the hidden trade-off. Because the body is the structure, engineers must limit maximum towing loads, frame twist under stress, suspension travel, long-term fatigue under repeated heavy loads. This is why most crossovers top out around 1,500 to 3,500 pounds of towing, even with powerful engines. Sounds fine, until you actually need more. And this leads directly to the next problem. Crossovers don't usually fail dramatically, they fade. Over time, unibody stress shows up as interior rattles, door alignment drift, suspension bushing wear, steering feel degradation. None of these scream mechanical failure, but together they change how the vehicle feels at 100,000 miles. Engineers know this. That's why crossovers are optimized for daily commuting, light family hauling, occasional road trips. If your SUV life is 95% pavement and parking lots, this design makes sense. But if you expect it to work like a truck, the structure itself becomes the limiter. Keep that in mind, because it matters later. Now let's talk about vehicles like the Chevrolet Tahoe, Ford Expedition, Toyota Sequoia, and Lexus GX. These are body-on-frame SUVs, meaning a steel ladder frame carries all structural loads. The body is mounted on top via isolation bushings. Suspension attaches to the frame, not the body. Mechanically, this changes everything. The frame absorbs torsional loads. The suspension can travel further. The vehicle tolerates uneven forces, towing, off-road articulation, payload, without stressing the cabin of it. That's why these SUVs tow 7,000 to 9,000 pounds, handle trailers with less sway, feel more stable under heavy loads. But there's a reason the first test drive sometimes disappoints. Body-on-frame SUVs feel heavier, less precise, more truck-like. That's not bad engineering. It's honest engineering. And this leads to the next insight. Here's a subtle point most reviews miss. Crossovers fake comfort through structure. Body-on-frame SUVs achieve comfort through isolation. In a crossover, the structure itself is tuned to flex in small, controlled ways. In a body-on-frame SUV, the frame stays rigid and rubber bushings isolate the cabin. That means crossovers feel smoother initially. Body-on-frame SUVs feel calmer under stress. This is why families who tow campers every summer often end up happier in a Tahoe, even if the test drive felt worse. And this brings us to the mid-video turning point. If you think this is just about fuel economy or ride comfort, the next part changes everything, because now we're going to talk about how engineers decide what your SUV is allowed to be bad at. Vehicles like the BMW X5, Porsche Cayenne, Audi Q7, and Jeep Grand Cherokee sit in a dangerous middle ground. They're still unibody, but they're reinforced. Engineers add thicker subframe, stiffer suspension mounting points, more complex multi-link suspensions, stronger driveline components. This allows higher towing than crossover, sharper handling than body-on-frame SUVs, better high-speed stability. But there's a price. These vehicles rely heavily on electronic suspension management, active dampers, torque vectoring systems, software-controlled drivetrains, which leads to a delayed consequence. When engineers compensate for structural limits with electronics, they're buying performance with systems, not metal. That means more sensors, more failure points, more calibration dependency. At 30,000 miles, these SUVs feel incredible. At 120,000 miles, the ownership experience diverges sharply. This is why two owners can have completely opposite experiences with the same model. The SUV didn't change. Their usage did. And now we circle back to the early callback. Remember the boring architectural detail from the beginning? Here it is. How load paths travel through the vehicle. In simple terms, crossovers send loads through the body. Body-on-frame SUVs send loads through the frame. Reinforced unibodies split the difference with complexity. If your driving creates repeated heavy loads, towing, uneven terrain, payload, the structure you choose determines how gracefully the SUV ages. This is why some SUVs feel loose and noisy over time. Others feel solid but unsophisticated. Others feel brilliant until maintenance catches up. Now let's match SUV types to real American use cases. Choose a crossover if you drive mostly urban or suburban. You value efficiency and comfort. Your towing is rare and light. You plan to sell before very high mileage. Mechanically, this is the most efficient solution. Choose a body-on-frame SUV if you tow regularly. You keep vehicles long-term. You value durability over precision. You want predictable aging. This design is overkill until it isn't. Choose a reinforced unibody SUV if you want high-speed stability. You want towing without truck feel. You accept higher long-term complexity. You maintain vehicles proactively. This is the most misunderstood category. And now for the late payoff. Most SUV regret doesn't come from bad vehicles. It comes from misaligned engineering expectations. People buy crossovers expecting truck durability, body-on-frame SUVs expecting car precision, performance SUVs expecting simplicity. The vehicle delivers exactly what it was engineered to deliver, just not what the owner imagined. Once you understand the structure, the confusion disappears.